Hello and welcome to Man's Model Moments. So firstly, apologies about the way this webcam is showing colors and stuff. I changed it today, and this one has slightly different sort of responses to different lighting, and yeah, it's a bit weird. So I look rather pink and sort of overexposed because I think it's sort of turning up its threshold. But anywho, that all aside, welcome everybody to this mystery edition. I feel a bit like Noel Edmonds with doing a What's in the Box episode. But yeah, half zombie look, definitely. So I have lighting here, but it's kind of reflecting. I don't have a light in this room. So why do you think I always have this light on in the background and not above? It's because there is no light in this room. So those of you who have followed the channel for a while may know, and I may have mentioned it on other streams, I live in a thatched cottage, which was built sometime around the end of the 17th century. This up here wasn't a room. It didn't have a second floor originally. So that fireplace is a recent addition. I'm not quite sure when it had the floor put in and then, a fireplace put in. Fireplace extended from downstairs. Probably in the 18th century, late 18th century or so. And the current stairs obviously are much, much newer, probably 20th century. But because the house is listed, obviously, and listing in the UK means that there are different categories. Ours is the lowest category. But it restricts what you can actually do because the house is of historical interest. So this ceiling, you may see this huge. This isn't an optical illusion. I'll use my little pointer. This line here of the ceiling, if I can get it, there we go. That line across there. It's not that the camera is wonky. That is the line. There are no right angles in this house at all. So that is the line of the ceiling, and the ceiling curves along here. So the original ceiling, at least from when it was listed, and there is no electricity up there. So there's nowhere to put a light. And because it was listed without cables and stuff up there, we can't put a lighting system in this. So that's why we have, little lamps around rather than actually proper lighting, which means I have my main lights here for the stream to go down onto the surface, which I'll do when we get into the What's in the Box part. And these are actually pretty strong. I can't remember what wattage they are. 5600 Kelvin. You can adjust the temperature and all that kind of stuff. But they are pretty bright. So even though I am reflecting onto, up here I've got this acoustic foam, so it's a black surface, and over there I'm reflecting onto a screen and stuff. Even so, that reflected light there's a lot of light here. So the webcam is sort of focused on the mid space. So this is why I am overexposed here. And because I put this one on today, I haven't really had time to tune it at all. The good thing is it should give better definition for actually looking at stuff. So you'll have to excuse my rather strange appearance, stranger than normal anyway, appearance for that. Yeah, that's absolutely possible. I could run lighting cable and trunking along the walls and ceiling. Well, not along the ceiling. I could run it up that wall and have a light at the top of the chimney breast there. We can't put anything permanent into the ceiling. So, yeah, that's possible, but yeah, it's a pain. I mean, I put a new floor in this room because it was basically a bowl, and the floor is fine because that wasn't original. But yeah, it's an interesting room. It's always interesting living in older houses. There's a lot of work needed doing when we came here. Okay, wow, 40 people in the stream tonight. I didn't expect that many to look in what a box contains. But, I hope you're not disappointed. So getting to the box, which is, let me see if you can. No, I think this chair completely blocks the view of it. So ICM sent me over a whole bunch of stuff which arrived towards the beginning of the week. I think Tuesday it arrived, something like that. So obviously ICM do send regular stuff over for review. I'd asked them for a couple of other pieces for a project that I'm doing for them, and that is what arrived. So it's a pretty big box. So let me get the box. So just if you didn't have the scale of the box before, it's pretty big. Big enough that I ended up knocking the microphone then. Apologies for that. Now, there is an ICM catalogue in the box, which I won't show you because obviously I've done the ICM releases. ICM have a full catalogue review now on their website. So if you haven't seen not only the new releases, but if you haven't seen the whole catalogue, they have the whole catalogue on YouTube. So you can go and have a look at that. I will say it's a really nicely produced catalogue. I was quite impressed with it. It looks pretty nice. So I will have that as a shop copy in the shop. And then they sent me a whole bunch of other things. So let me get the first lot, as it were. Move this keyboard a second. Stalk between other projects here. So one of the first things they sent me is this set. So this is from their January release. This is the War Has No Gender set. And I had an interesting discussion with some people and sort of wanted to explore the subject of this, because this is obviously Ukrainian service women. So a couple operating a drone here, and then there's a couple here taking a selfie with a little puppy they've recovered. And the subject came up of whether that is that an empowering depiction of women? So some people think it's not, that it's kind of a very traditional, oh look, they're taking selfies with a puppy kind of thing. I have a slightly different view. I think very few companies are doing this sort of thing, are showing like any sort of diversity in combat. And the Ukraine are pretty well placed to be able to talk about it, because there are a lot of Ukrainian servicewomen now. Previously, they were only in ancillary roles, right? Not main combat roles. And in obviously the invasion, that's changed. And there's a lot of drone operators now, a lot of drivers, a lot of snipers, and other things. I think actually having a couple of drone operators, I mean, I could look at other sets and say, well, there aren't any male drone operators, for instance, you know? So I think it's actually really good, because if you think about the models of women in combat, not so much World War II, because there are some Russian ones, because they were really the only ones that had active combat units of women. Not totally, but you know, talking broad brush here. Most of the models of depictions of women, the most prevalent ones, are things like the Hasegawa ones of Formula One girls. Now, which is a very different depiction of women. So I think to say that something like this is a sort of traditional sexist view, I think is not the case. So I actually asked ICM and said, do you know what, could you send me all of your existing 1/35th scale Ukrainian combat sets? And I'll do a piece, I'll do a video looking at them all. And actually, because for one thing, I think ICM do really good figure sets. And if you've not checked them out, then you definitely should, either 48th or 35th scale. And I'll sort of go through them. And I think I'll do two, because I want to do a piece on the ICM figures, and then I actually want to do a piece, which I've talked about a few times, on painting figures for modelers. So we have a whole bunch here. We have, again, getting really bad reflections here, the journalists in war, which there are 2 men, 2 women in that. We have the quietly came, quietly went set, which is a sort of set of special forces. You have the always the first. I'm trying to do this so you don't get reflections, but it's quite difficult. Always the first. These are air assault troops. And then you have a bunch of sappers, mine detection and removal, including a doggo. So, spoiler alert, I'm going to do, well, actually, it'll be 3 videos in total. I want to do one on the figures themselves, which I'll give you a little view of in a minute. Second one on painting figures, because there's a few things, and I think different levels of painting as well. But I think painting figures often lets people down, or people aren't comfortable with painting figures if they're scale modelers rather than mini figure painters. And then the third one is I'm actually going to put together a bunch of these with the Kozak 2, which is in progress at the moment, for a kind of diorama Ukraine scene. So let me let me show you everything that's in the box, and then I can put the cameras down, camera and lights down, and then you can see them in a bit more detail. Next up, in what's in the box. I should do a little sweepstake, shouldn't I? What's going to be in? You should type it in the comments. So a couple of sets here. Paint sets. So the first one, see, is Royal Navy Aviation, World War II British Navy Aviation. And the other one is World War I US vehicles. Now, I've got a few ICM paints, and again, I think I'll do a separate video just on ICM paints and comparing them to others, because I haven't done anything on painting and paints and themselves and colour theory and all that sort of stuff for quite a while. Probably for over a year, actually. So I think that would be quite good. I really like the way ICM paints work. One of the things that I'm not so keen on with ICM paints is their choices of these colours. So some of you will remember, maybe, when I was doing, I think it was the Hunter, which is still there, still ongoing, still a project. So we'll come back to it. That I was waiting to do the ICM Beaufort for a set of these paints from ICM. Now they sent me the paints, but the choices of colours come from their existing range, and let's say they're not exactly what I would call, I mean, I've talked about the myth of colour accuracy, but that has limits, right? If you look at Dark Earth and you've got a chocolate colour, it's like, am I going to use that? So I think their idea of what a colour is in a set needs some work, let's say. The actual paints themselves, outside of the metallics aren't great. I found pretty good to work with. I've not tried spraying them, so I think again that's another piece. They might be. So that was. Are these paint sets a spoiler for what else might be in the box? Yes, absolutely they are. So let's start with the first of those then. And the astute among you will probably know what's actually coming. in all of these, and certainly once I put this up, which is the FWD Type B. This is the US ammunition truck, World War I ammunition truck. I think this is a really unusual thing. So World War I is not my thing, really. As a particular interest, I think all conflicts are horrific, but World War I somehow just seems more horrific. The use of chemical weapons, trench warfare, just the absolute, almost a lack of tactics. Yeah, just throwing men against machine guns, just seems brutal and callous in a way that, World War II had many horrors, but they didn't seem to be on that kind of almost institutional scale. Like, the idea of General Haig moving lines about on a map, and each time he moved a line, 10,000 people died. So not something, and again, at the end, we had the development of armored warfare. So before that, it's just men and mud, right? And artillery slogging it out. So the idea of vehicles being an interesting thing then, this is actually, the most interesting vehicle I think I've seen for a World War I, outside of the tanks right at the end. And I really like the camouflage scheme, which is very sort of, mid 1930s, early 40s French, in that kind of sort of yellowish ochre, green, black edges, which I think is a very attractive camouflage scheme. So we have that. Let's do the other spoiler, which is this beastie. This is the Gloucester Sea Gladiator Mark II, complete with Royal Navy pilots. Now, I actually have an ICM 1/32nd scale Gladiator already. The pilots and the crew I have in 48 scale. Or is it? No, I got them in 48 scale. And I probably wouldn't use them with a Gladiator anyway. So I'll be doing an unboxing review on this, after which this will be part of a giveaway. So the exact form of that I have yet to kind of work out, but for sure, I can build a Gloucester Gladiator with ICM, do the review on it, do whatever else without this kit. So I can do an unboxing on it, and then this will be a channel giveaway. So really nice to see. I think including the pilots with it, especially in the scale, which, there aren't that many 1/32nd scale figures, is a pretty good one. I'll put up a little pile here. The next one, we're going to an even bigger scale. And yes, if you hadn't worked it out, these are the January releases for ICM. We have this. The Type G4 with MG34 and German staff personnel. Now this, I think, is a really good set to have and add interest to a scene. Being 24 scale, it kind of lends itself naturally to those big scale aircraft. You can imagine, some senior staff coming to look at, the latest iteration of a fighter or whatever. It's a really full box. I don't know if you can see that. It's kind of bulging. This is kind of like the minimum size box I think it would fit into. I mean, I can shake that. It makes almost no noise at all. And that's one thing I've noticed with ICM kits as well, is they're pretty full. They have the same sort of philosophy, it seems, that Airfix do. So Dale at Airfix always talked about the full box experience, which really wasn't a thing for Airfix in the past, right? Those of you who remember the Airfix Valkyrie, for instance, or the Airfix Concorde, was a few bits rattling around in a really oversized box, even quite thin boxes, but quite long and big. And there's still just like pieces rattling around in there. That's quite a disappointing experience, I always find. This is not that. Right, last thing, which is the part what I'm most excited about, is this beast. The JU88 P1 Tank Buster. So I've never done a JU88 in 48 scale. For World War II stuff, I was always traditionally a 1/72nd scale modeler because I wanted to do a lot of different things and see the comparison between them. The JU88, the P series, which are obviously all of these converted tank busters, they didn't make very many of them. They weren't very good. I mean, the JU88 itself with a glazed nose was one thing, the A series, which the light bombers and stuff. You got the fighters, I think they look, the night fighters, which I think look cool. And the P sort of incorporates elements of both those because you've got that solid nose of the like C, plus this underslung gondola with a massive gun in it. Kind of, it just appeals to me. I don't know. I also like the Henschel HS 129 tank buster and the Kanonenvogel, the Stuka, the G series. So, I mean, that's going to be a pretty chunky aircraft. And if it's as good as things like Sally, the Beaufort and stuff, then I think it'll be really good. So we'll have a little look at that. Speaking of the Sally, the out-of-the-box review on that will be out on Saturday. So finish that today. So that'll go up. I typically try to do a video on a Friday or a Saturday. I think Saturday is probably a better day for it for most, because there's quite a lot of other things happening on a Friday for a lot of people. But the Sally goes out on Saturday, and then Sunday I'll probably do a live build incorporating elements of the. I put the radar warning receiver on. I'll probably do one combining the F-15. Excuse me, the F-15, because I haven't got much more to do on that, and the Skipper. Get back into the short Skipper. It's been sitting in the garage stroke man cave, my build area, since Christmas. So I think it's time the Skipper came out and got a little bit more. All right, let me just have a quick look through the comments. I think I've kind of been glancing at them as we go. Hello, everybody. I haven't already said hello to in the chat. Yeah, I think the thing with World War One, right, is that I'm going to get in trouble here for saying there aren't that many subjects. Now, I know there probably are a fair few subjects, but there wasn't the development of technology in, things like armor and stuff till right at the end, obviously. And then you got the male and the female and the Whippet and the enormous German monstrosity, the A7, whatever it was. But up until then, the artillery development was the main thing, right? And it was all about, it was very static war, it was very turgid war, hence the use of chemical weapons to try and shift troops, the constant backwards and forwards and things. And I think that's why World War II gained such a focus in modelers' minds. One, because for a generation it was, absolutely iconic, because obviously it was close enough that people have relatives that fought in it, died in it, won medals in it, survived it. The atrocities that happened kind of gave it that infamy. And you had a massive technological development from the end of the 30s to 1945, the leaps in technology, and war always does this, right? Any sort of competition increases that. But war especially, because you're literally fighting for your lives, and technology, keeps leapfrogging each other to give you that advantage, to give you that edge over your enemy. So I think because of that, the breadth of stuff that's available for World War II compared to the relatively small amount of stuff for World War One kind of push it out. So if you look at aircraft models, it's quite different, right? There's a lot more aircraft, World War One aircraft, than there are the ground subjects, because the war in the air, that technology was developing, and you had all kinds of weird, wonderful things flying around in the air. But yeah, I think World War One subjects have probably got more focus in the last 20 years or so, because if you think of the likes of Edward, you have Roden, you have these sort of more niche companies that produce some really nice. There's another company as well. It's a German company or Polish company that make quite a lot of World War One aircraft again. But I think that's kind of the reason for the historical focus or lack of focus on World War One, more focus on World War Two, Cold War, etc. Yeah, I think. I mean, even looking at it now, right? If you look at both of the wars, it was a time of insanity, both times, right? And in some ways, you can't imagine either of those conflicts happening again. And then in other ways, you look at some of the way that the world is becoming increasingly polarized, and you think maybe it could. Let's hope not. Yeah. How would I do black edges to the camouflage? I would probably just hand paint them. In fact, that might be a thing, right? I think for a ground vehicle for World War One, given that I have this set to go with it, I think hand painting the whole thing would probably be a good thing, right? Yeah, I think that's probably a good one. You look inside. Well, be careful what you wish for. So when ICM first approached me, I was like, yeah, it's great. I'd love to do some stuff with ICM. I'd love to kind of show my solidarity for them, and also they do some really good stuff. So I think they deserve to have the platform. I don't think a lot of people outside of doing YouTube videos on this, and I am actually doing what it takes to make an unboxing video, just an unboxing video, nothing more, because that's the simplest type of video to make, right? For YouTube. So I'm doing a video on that. It's been asked for a few times. I've got half of it in the can, as I speak. I did a bit more today because I need to do the sort of front end stuff rather than kind of got the middle, and then I need to do the back end. It's a lot of work, right? Especially, if it's a full-time thing, then yeah, it's easy, right? This is not a full-time job for me. YouTube helps for sure, considering that at the moment struggling a bit. YouTube is a great help, but it is not a job. Those people, if you look at the sort of people that, and I think, is any modeling YouTuber going to be able to do this as a job? It depends on what standard of living you're prepared to accept. If you have the overheads that I've developed in my life, no. It would have to be an awful lot, much more successful. And people are more interested in, dancing cats or doing TikTok. I was going to swear then, but I won't. TikTok stuff than they are about models. So yeah, I don't think it's going to make me a millionaire or even 100-aire. But getting a whole bunch of stuff like this is great, and for me, one of the really good things is, like with this Sea Gladiator, they sent me this. I could do a review on it without building it, And I'm able to do a giveaway to give back to you guys for supporting me, by watching, by subscribing. And that doesn't cost, it doesn't come out of my pocket, which I can't afford to do. So for that, it's really good. So I'd like to spread that around, share the love a bit. So the other side of it, of course, is that it is advertising for ICM. And if you were to pay somebody to do a video, if I was charging my consulting rates in my main job to do a video review of something, it's a lot of money, right? If you think if you're paying a solicitor, right, in the UK, between £200 and £300 an hour, you pay a solicitor. And if you're paying for an actual dedicated videographer to do that sort of work, you're looking at, let's say, the same sort of rate, £200 an hour. We'll go for the lower end of it, right? £200 an hour. And you think, well, it takes at least a day, 8 hours of work to make an unboxing video, right? So do the maths. Even if you say they're going to do a bargain rate of £100 an hour, right? 8 hours work, it's almost £1,000 for a video, right? That's how much that a professional would charge to do that kind of video for a company. So it's very cheap for the company. They just send out product, right? Which doesn't cost them what they sell it for anyway. So yeah, it's good, but it's not like somebody's just giving you kits. They're not just giving you them saying, hey, here we go, have this. It's not a present. There is an expectation that there will be a review, because if there isn't, then why send me anything? There's no expectation, by the way, from ICM of what I say. They've never once asked me to do anything in a positive light. They've just said, would you review some stuff? I was like, yeah, I will. And I won't charge as long as I can say whatever I like. And I haven't taken a paid, a sponsorship, if you like, for that. From any company. Any of the ones I've done where people have sent products have always been specified that, I'm quite happy to do this, but it will be my opinion. And if I think it's crap, I'll say it's crap. That's the risk you take. So if you commit to sending me a product, and if you want to stand by the quality of your product, that's fine. It should speak for itself. It should come through in a review. I'm happy to talk to a company if they, if I say, look, this isn't very good because it does this and this. And if that's me making a mistake, I'm quite happy to have that dialogue. But if it's like, no, that's how it works, it's like, well, I don't like that, and I'll say I don't like it. Right? So like with the paints, I tried these paints, not these ones, obviously, but I've tried ICM paints. Really don't like the metallic. The silver has no coverage at all, for instance. But the others, I like. That's just their product. If they want me to say nice things about the metallics, they need to redevelop the metallics. Or send me a batch that was good, Anywho. So I think I've caught up pretty much with all of the comments. Am I allowed to? Well, potentially, I guess, yes. I haven't, but I could do. As again, I do reviews on them. So some of them I will build, and some of them, to be honest, I think I would rather use them as giveaways rather than trying to make money out of them. That seems a bit wrong somehow. It's not really, because they've given me them to do a review. If once I've done a review, I guess I could do what I like with them. But selling them seems a bit, I don't know, cheap. I think I would rather use them as channel giveaways. And I do actually have another kit, which was from a prior set, which is the Bowfighter with crew as well, which I'll be doing as a giveaway. So I think it's far better to give, one, it gives ICM publicity, right, which is what they want, and two, it gives stuff back to you, gives you guys a chance to actually try out some of these things that I talk about for free. Right? All right. enough of that. Let's have a look inside some boxes. Right, we've looked inside the big box. Nothing more in the big box. It's completely empty now. Let's have a look. What should we look at first? I think we talked about the World War I one a lot, so let's look at the World War One. Now, these all do come sealed. I have cut all of the sellotape on them already. Principally because I'm a child and I wanted to see inside them all when they came. Right, let me sort out these lights. See what interesting shades of colour I go while I do this. Change the colour temperature on these. Well, you see that is full brightness on this light. So just to give you an idea how massively oversaturated the sensor is. Okay, let's move you guys down so you can see. All right. This is actually probably the least full box I've had from an ICM kit so far. Right, I'll do it upside down for me so you guys can see. I'll put the plastic to one side a second. So here we go, the FWT Type B ammunition truck. I know absolutely nothing about this subject, I must say. Right. So I've mentioned it a few times on the channel. Is part of the enjoyment and part of the, I think, the joy of modeling is finding out information about things that you know nothing about. It broadens your mind, it broadens your understanding. And I think it's I find it a really enjoyable part of the hobby. One of the things that I will also say, and I've said it on the Sally review that will go out on Saturday, this, I think, is one of the best things that any model company has done for a long time. So if I put that up there, you can see this is a QR code which talks about subscribe to our channel. But if you click on that, you'll actually get to a video on YouTube of a 3D set of instructions, like a video set of instructions. And it's such a good idea. I mean, it hasn't been really possible up until, what, 5, 10, 15 years ago, I guess, that you could do video stuff like that, but nobody's really actually done it. Everybody still uses paper instructions like this, and ICM's paper instructions are very good, but taking it that step further and doing like video, CAD rendered video pictures, I think is fantastic. Okay, so that is, look at that. That is one of the smallest decal sheets I think I've ever seen. There we go. FWD ammunition truck, US Ordnance Department. That's cool. So yeah, you're not getting a lot of decals there, but then I didn't really expect that. Interesting that this is obviously developed from their prior kit of the FWD. And if I turn this over, I expect there is a new sprue. Yeah, here we go. So it looks like this is the new sprue or frame. Some people get very offended by the term sprue. I think they need to get a life, but you know. These ones are for the standard truck. So if I show you this. See, now we've got the full light and it's all down. You're not getting that horrible reflection. I'd have to really angle it at you to do that. Yeah. So this is their standard truck version, which they've released before. And then this is the ammo truck version. So these parts are all going to be for that standard truck version. So I imagine if you really wanted to, I don't know why you would, but you could build this as the standard truck version too, and then have parts over. But I really like the fact that they give you everything, even though you're only using what, 5 parts from this frame, 6 parts potentially, and you get all of these other parts as spares. I mean, that's practically, well, it is the flatbed of a truck, isn't it? Which would be great for dioramas. Let's actually open some plastic. Authentic plastic opening noises. One thing ICM always do, and it's pretty common now, right? It's pretty ubiquitous with manufacturers now. Airfix do it, Tamiya do it, everybody does it, is separately bagging transparencies. You know, I remember back in the day when I was a lad, you know, they just rattled around in the box, getting detached and scratched to crap. So this is that sprue. So this frame, frame B, we are basically using almost none of this. So we don't use any of these. Actually, it's this way, isn't it? So we don't use, the main body, 2 sides. That's the entire canvas piece. Don't use the ends, obviously. All these ends, you're only using, what are these, the mud guards or something? Don't know. So yeah, there's a lot of plastic there that you're not using. And it also looks like you're not using some of the wheels. Again, I think for dioramas, you know, the for your spares box, these pieces, I mean, look really good. That is the new frame. This is that. Let's get this the right way around. There we go. It's like that. So yeah, these wheels to put in a diorama for broken stuff. It's fantastic. Most of ICM's vehicles seem to come with complete engines, the 35th scale stuff. You know, if anything, they are slightly over-engineered, not mini art over-engineered. I think they're as complex as I'd probably want to go, I would say, in a kit. I've not done a mini art kit. I will have to tick that off. It's a bit like owning an Alpha, I think, if you're a gearhead. But that looks, I mean, you're getting some really nice pieces here. I think the original tooling of this goes back to 2019, I believe. But you can see the casting detail on these, the crispness. I really can't fault ICM kits over the past few years. If you go back to like the Ghost of Kiev sort of area, the late 90s, they were much more like Zvezda, I feel. You know, they had much softer panel lines and things. They've come a long way from then. A long way. Very short space of time, really. Let me have a look. Parallel, I just got back to the hobby after the decade, starting with a 40-year-old kit of Polish reconnaissance aircraft. Wow. Business. Yeah. I mean, sometimes it's a challenge, right? To do an old kit. You know, you can set yourself up for that. As long as you're expecting it, I think it's fine. But sometimes it does get to be, you know, just a grind. You just think, I wish this was over. So this is frame C. It's actually that way round. But I wish you well with it, pal. that two halves of the same, or is that a separate one? Two different ones. As you use them, I guess they're two halves. But a lot of extra pieces here. The other thing that I like about the way ICM do this, Academy tend to do this as well, is thinking about how you protect things on the frames. So here you have these, this looks like framing for the canvas, right, on the truck, which is why you don't use it on this version. So they've cast the sprue gate goes all the way around, and then it's come on here. So it's very difficult to break that unless you were to catch these ends. Yeah. So thinking, it's just a small design piece that doesn't make really any difference. Also, it helps, of course, in casting the piece, but it doesn't make any difference to them as kit makers, right? But it makes all the difference to you in getting a finished product to you in a condition to be able to use it. Airfix have been thinking about this a lot as well in their designs. You know, Academy, as I say, do it. Their F-35, I think it's the B, has a fantastic, basically a little structure built around where the canopy framing piece is, which is really delicate, and it's almost impossible to get to accidentally to damage it, which is fantastic. So I think companies now, you've got to look at not just what they're doing in terms of the quality of plastic that they're putting out, but also how they're thinking about we as modelers use their product, because essentially they're providing something for us to then make, right? They are not providing a finished product, they're providing some components that we then go away and make something with. So thinking about how they get those pieces to you and how easy it is for you to build them, I think are important parts of modeling. The manufacturers in the past really didn't give a damn about, right? Back in the 70s and 80s, it was just like, we made a kit of this, do it, you know, and it's like if the parts didn't fit properly and stuff, well, that's your problem, we got your money. Whereas now I think it's very much more about that experience. You know, the consumer experience is the important thing. Just to kind of pick out some of these things. Again, webcam is not the best. One of the things I talk about in actually making a YouTube video is your camera, right? A lot of people make YouTube videos with their phone camera. That's okay, and phone cameras are actually better usually quality than webcams, but they're not designed for macro work, right? They are not designed for fixed aperture settings and focus settings and all the other things. They're designed with a certain lighting spectrum in mind and all those kinds of things. So the sensors aren't necessarily calibrated for particular colors. So CMOS sensors, particularly older ones, weren't very receptive to red. So they're actually much less receptive to red than they are other colors, which skews your color, and reds don't come out as very vibrant. More expensive CMOS sensors, like you get in SLRs and mirrorless cameras, have better ones that fix that problem. So all of these things that people don't think of, which if you're doing a general stuff, if you're dancing in front of it for TikTok, you know, it's fine. Nobody gives a damn. Nobody's noticing. And they're probably watching it because you're either a pretty girl or you're a dumb guy doing something stupid, right? You know, that's 99% of TikTok and YouTube Shorts. If you're doing something where actually color matters, focus matters, you know, and the overall visual experience is part of it, the detail, you need to look at that a little bit more, you know, or at least think about what quality you're giving, because you've also got to deal with either StreamYard and or YouTube compression algorithms as well. So you want the base material that you start off with to be as good as possible. And that's hard when you've got, you know, a webcam, for instance. But the actual casting quality, what I was actually going to say before I got down a rabbit hole because of the quality of a webcam, because this isn't designed for macro work, you know, because its focus is designed to be about here, and then you can't see much anyway. There is actually lettering cast onto that radiator. You can see it, but you can't see it in detail here. Again, once I This is the camera that I use for my videos. It's a Pentax DSLR. And the lens on it is the most important part of it. You'll be able to see what that looks like in reality. But take my word for it, and hopefully you can kind of get an impression of the casting crispness and quality here. I mean, really, it's the same thing when I was talking about cameras in model kits, right? If you think of a Zvezda kit, that's like a webcam, right? From a distance, it looks great. You get closer in, and there is detail there, but it's slightly soft around the edges. The panel lines aren't that deep. There's a bit of softness in the molding and stuff. If you've got a camera with a good lens, then you get that clarity and crispness coming in. And it's the same thing with, if you look at an Airfix or a Tamiya or an ICM tooling, you get that crispness, the precision coming in. So, I mean, you can start to see it. Again, you probably can't see it on the webcam, I'm sorry, but the detail of just these pieces, the panels, the little rivets and screws and things on this is really phenomenal. So this just goes to emphasize what I was saying, right? Is this exhaust, the exhaust of the truck here? Now they could have molded this in two parts, right? They could have molded this part and then this piece is a separate one. But let's face it, we've all tried gluing these sorts of things together and getting the wrong angle and stuff, and sometimes it's a pain in the ass. So they've done it in one piece, but that makes it an odd shape. So in order to protect it, look at that. The sprue from the frame actually comes right up following that, and then the part comes along molded to it. It's that sort of thought. These pieces here, look at the way that they have the sprue frame cross and then little injection points. And again, very thin injection points. These are very, very thin pieces. Things like the steering wheel here. Again, they haven't gone all the way around because that would make it a little bit more difficult to cut out. But, just things like this. I mean, the finesse on some of these pieces. I know some people have said, ICM kits do have, tried ICM kits and they have all these tiny pieces. Yeah, if you can't deal with tiny pieces, I would say ICM, certainly MiniArt's not going to be the company for you. And some of the ICM kits do push that boundary. If you're used to 1/72 scale, though, these pieces probably wouldn't form much of a problem to you. But I would rather have small, fiddly injection molded pieces than have to try to deal with photo etch extras, which are going to be the same size, but you have to use super glue with and are more of a pain in the ass to deal with. So I think better the devil you know. When I review kits, I always give higher marks to those that are purely injection molded. If you don't need to go to photo etch and resin to get the level of detail that you need, importantly, you still need to get that level of detail. That's a bonus, right? If you can get injection molding plastic, so you're using a single glue, the same techniques all the way through, that is a bonus. Yeah. Multimedia kits have their place, and if you want to go do the aftermarket, that's fine. But if you can not do that and still get that really nice representation of what you're trying to do, I think that is the holy grail. Right? So really, really nice pieces on here. And then this is, I think, most of the extras, right, that you're getting from the prior kit. So this is all of the sort of ammo truck version pieces. You have, that very distinctive canvas peaked piece, and it curves down. So you've got the sag between the two. I mean, some people won't like that as a canvas representation. I want to do something else, but I think with some decent painting, that could look pretty good. just the level of casting quality. You can kind of see it on the webcam. Again, you'll see it better on the actual review, but you're getting a sneak peek here, right? That looks like a nice build. And it does look slightly easier than some other builds. So I was building the last Kraftwagen, the Gulasch Kanone, sorry, Gulasch Kanone, the field kitchen version of that last Kraftwagen, and putting the chassis together. I mean, this is a simpler chassis because obviously it's an earlier vehicle, but putting the chassis of that together was as complex as I'd want to get. Let's put it that way. It wasn't difficult, but it was a lot. It was a lot of stuff, right? Whereas this seems a little less of that, right? There's still a lot. I mean, you've still got a lot of pieces here, right? You know, you've got your full transmission, you know, in here. A lot of stuff. Oh yeah, they are two pieces. Look, there we go. There's your full engine, such as it was. And a lot of times, I mean, if you're never going to pick these things up, never going to open any of the panels and stuff, a lot of times you can leave a lot of this out, right? If you wanted to. You don't have to do that. You could use that as a spare, or I think these are great kits for doing the basis of a diorama. You could have, you know, one of these trucks with, you know, something wrong with the engine and some mechanics dealing with that, and you've got pretty much everything you need for that. You know, you put in some, God, where have I put it? There we go. You know, put a few wires in with lead wire, and you've kind of got everything you need there. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff there. You don't have much in the cab, of course, because it was open, which is an interesting choice for a military vehicle, I feel. But you do get a nice quilted seat, nice quilted leather seat. They had some strange ideas back then, didn't they? 100 years ago. It really, I mean, that piece, literally, you could take that, and that, and put two wheels either side, front and back, with a little engine. That's a little car, isn't it? That's a little 1920s car. And then you have the whole new piece, all this ammo section. That's interesting. It's like cables. I can't actually read it because it's upside down for me. But yeah, I think at the end, you get quite an interesting little vehicle. I mean, that's very different from anything, A, that I would normally do, and B, you know, have in my collection. It must have been hell to ride on. I mean, there's no cushioning at all. I mean, yeah, it's got leaf spring suspension, but it must have been a bit of a bone breaker. I mean, that is not an interesting scheme for me, green. But this, yeah. Oh, you get another one as well, another green one, should you wish. It's a funny, weird-looking thing from the front, isn't it? I mean, it's kind of weird-looking from all sides, but yeah. So there we go. That's the FWD Type B ammunition truck. 4-wheel drive. Yeah, 4-wheel drive was an interesting technological thing back then, eh? The way this looks. So yeah, this is what I was talking about. And the one thing I would say about ICM kits, and I also have this criticism of Airfix kits, I think Revell as well, is they all, and I understand why they do it, right? Because they've all got their own paint ranges, but they only list their paints, right? So when I'm reviewing kits and instructions and stuff in general, if I don't give any points to, I've got a scoring system, and for supplying, I think you get 1 point actually if you supply because some, right, Orange Hobby, for instance, you will see this in my F35 comparison. If you watch that video, the Orange Hobby kit, it just says grey. It doesn't give you any pointers. It doesn't point to an FS number or light grey or dark grey. It's just grey, like neutral grey. It's like, okay, that could be a lot of things, right? They don't really give you any pointers, no suggestions of paint ranges or anything. It's like, that's bad. That's no points. Yeah. But just listing your own paint ranges is just like, yeah, okay, that's not that helpful. I think especially for a company like ICM that doesn't have as broad a reach. I get why Airfix and Revell do it because they want you to use their paint. But to be honest, I mean, neither of their paint ranges is great, right? If to me, I understand it more, but to me, I actually generally give you more than one paint range. If a company is going to give paint references, I think it's incumbent on them to give you an actual paint reference, really, rather than just list what it is. I'd rather they said this is, FS 56012. Dark sea grey. That's obviously not, I'm just making it up off the top of my head because I don't know what that is. Dark sea grey, and that equates to Humbrol number 165, whatever. That's great, yeah, because you've got the colour and the Humbrol reference. But I also know what the colour is, so if I want to go and look at it in my range, then it's an easy thing. Again, it's how am I making this easier for the customer? While suggesting my products, yes, I appreciate you want to push your own products, but I'm never going to use Humbrol acrylics, ever, on a kit, right? I can almost guarantee that, unless they come in a starting set and I'm doing a challenge. So to force that, or try to force that, I just find a bit weird. ICM don't list what those are, right? You've got, I mean, as with everything, a black, yeah, that's fine. Natural steel, yeah, okay. These other colours that they quote, middle stone and what the hell is that one? Camouflage green. I mean, camouflage green could be almost anything, right? Say that was actually an olive green, because I think they've actually got camouflage green as well up here. Look, yeah, these are both camouflage green, but they're different. So what does that mean if I'm looking in another paint range? That's not very helpful. That's the only detractor I really have on ICM's instructions. The people I find that are best at it are Italeri, because they generally will list federal standard numbers as well as paint ranges, which I think is the best thing you could do, right? Tell the customer exactly what the paint shade is, what your number is, you're golden, right? Then it's completely up to the customer. You've provided them with all the information they need. It's their choice after that. I think just doing this isn't a very good way of doing it. And Airfix and Revell both do that. Let me just go back to the chat, have a little you don't care about the quality of the camera, I prefer the quality and honesty of the presenter. Well, hopefully, Mario, I can at least address some of that. I'm honest. I don't know about quality, but I think the other thing as well, and I said this in the Sally video, I get these kits from ICM. They don't charge me for them, because if they did, I wouldn't do them because I don't have the spare money at the moment. And I don't charge them because I think giving a review, if there's money exchanged on either side, there is an expectation of something, right? And I would prefer to give my honest view, and I think people watching appreciate that. And also, I want to provide a review in a way that you guys can look at it and make your own decision. So I'm giving you, again, like the paint thing, right? I'm giving you all of the information, which is why I show you the box, taking the stuff out of the box so you can make a decision about what that packaging you think is good. So if you wanted to order it from the US and they only do it in Europe, it's got to travel a long way. Is it going to make it? That kind of stuff. I show you all of the sprues, all the sprue frames, how they're packaged, and I show them in close-up so you can get an idea of the quality and stuff. Then I can have an opinion on what I think of it, but you've got all of the information there to look at it and say, that's fine, Alex, I appreciate what you're saying, but I don't agree. I think it is better or worse than you have said, but that's your choice, right? I think that is a perfect kind of review, right? Is where you have enough information to make that informed choice yourself. Okay. Yeah, I mean, they're pretty good. I mean, I would say Airfix in recent years has done pretty well designed sprues. The other thing, actually, as well, I noticed this when building the last Kraftwagen, is that, and I don't know whether it's happened on this, is starting the construction, I was just using parts from one sprue. Airfix do this as well. They sequentially number stuff, so you're actually going up, because back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and some people still do it today, mentioning no names, Revell, will have, okay, you take part A6 and part G14 and part C12, 19 and 48. So you're hunting over these sprue frames, like, where the hell are these? One thing I wish Airfix would do that they don't on all of them, I've noticed they've done it on some of them, like some of the higher end, more expensive kits, but not on all, are sprue frame trees. So if you don't know where things are, or if you don't know something's missing, and this is why I came unstuck with the Airfix Spitfire, is I didn't realize I didn't have frame, I think it was frame G, which only had one part, which was the engine cowling, of course. But it makes it much easier to tell. Those video instructions, by the way, also include the sprue frame layouts, which I think is great. Okay. I definitely think so. I think ICM are, in many ways, well ahead of a lot of companies. They don't have the reach of companies like Airfix and Revell, but I think that's why they are dealing with Revell on some of their kits. So a lot of, again, go and have a look at my Revell review video that came out, well, yes, last night, was it? I think I did it. There are at least 3, if not 4, ICM kits that are on their new list. I mean, Revell box a lot of stuff, and a lot of companies do rebox other things. My issue, of course, is the lack of transparency with it all. Right, I'm going to stick with vehicles. We're going to go to this. I don't know why I'm as excited about this as I am, because I'm not really a car person. This is a scale that I don't normally do. That is a very, very, literally is bulging. Wow. That is a fat package, if you will. Let's put that to one side. I'm just quickly looking through the chat just before I start on this. A few more people in. Hi, David. Hello, David and David. couple of Davids. Hi, Chris, Stuart, David, taggers, welcome. Right, let me. Here we go. The Type G4. So the Type G4 they've released several times in different iterations, and ICM are pretty good at doing that, right? About getting maximum mileage, I guess you'd call it, to use a motoring expression, out of their frames, which is just smart, right? You know, good companies will do that, you know, and that's good for us because we get lots of different versions of the same kit, you know, especially the ones that we want. Okay, we've got very small set of decals there. Got some instrument dials. Quite nice. Not really sure why we've got a Bavarian cross flag. Probably because they didn't want to do a swastika, I guess. So they've never done this kit with the machine guns, which, surprise, surprise, is a new frame in there. Get two of those. Okay, because it's got two machine guns on it, right? Get that. And they've not done it before with the crew figures, or the staff, I should say. It looks in a very similar vein to what we've just seen. Full engine. Got the chassis for the transmission. I guess what I like about, as I said, I'm not really a car person, but that's because I kind of like vehicles that you can weather. And generally cars don't get much weathering, and they tend to look a bit crap when they're weathered. You know, you don't want to see a dirty car. But this gives you an excuse to have a car which is nice and shiny, but also with some dirt on it because it's a military vehicle. So it kind of covers both pieces. Also, you know, it's just the perfect thing to have, I think, next to a 124 scale, 190 or 109 or something. Which is kind of what I want to do with it. Yeah, there's your MGs, which it looks like, yeah, you get full articulated frames for. And you get some little painting guides for the crew. Well, crew, I guess you've got driver and then two officers. Was he a general? Field marshal? I don't know. Some high-ranking German Nazi dude. But wow, that is a... Look at that. It's a packed bag. Let's look at that new frame first. That is a nice MG34, I have to say. Frame itself, I guess you could actually, I don't know whether these are drilled out or not on the real thing. There's a little bit of research you need to do. I would probably drill those out. I imagine they are hollow, just basically to reduce weight, but I'll have to check before I did that. But that looks pretty nice. Obviously got a couple of those, which is good. And then this is the other piece, which I think looks really nice. As I said before, I actually really like the ICM figures that I've seen. I think they obviously employed somebody who was used to sculpting figures, because, and I noticed actually from Ravel's releases, I saw an actually built 1/12 speeder bike. They actually had one at the Nuremberg Toy Festival. And I'm not sure they do have somebody who sculpts figures because considering 1/12 scale is twice this scale, right? So their legs are going to be like this big. Right? It's a you're a big boy at 1/12 scale. Basically that's half a. You're getting on 1/12 scale. If you're 6 feet tall, 6 inches, 150 millimeters tall. But he's obviously sitting on the speeder bike, and this part of the leg was just completely smooth, like a sausage, like a hot dog. Whereas if you look at these, even when somebody is standing perfectly straight, you have the creases in the fabric. It looks natural. It's actually quite difficult to sculpt natural-looking people. And I think definitely ICM have either a dedicated figure sculptor or a sculptor who is, has done figure sculpting in the past, because their poses, the way the cloth folds and things look very natural. And then to be able to transfer that, you've got to cut those up, obviously in CAD, and transfer them to a frame whilst preserving, things like the facial detail here. They get good expressions on their faces, very natural looking hand posture. Not that easy to do. So I think all credit to ICM here. The one thing I will say with their figures is generally they do need a little bit of cleanup compared to the kit parts. So I think you can see maybe just along, if I can get the camera kind of angled right, just along some of these, there are little bits where the two molds meet that you just need to clean up a little. It's a little bit. It's like a light, light scrape, or very light sand with fairly high grade sandpaper. Not a lot of cleanup, but you do generally have to clean up. I would say you should always clean up minis anyway, because any small thing on a mini makes it look like a mannequin. But yeah, you've got a really nice, I presume, Walther holster there, P38. So quite excited about these figures and how they'll paint up. In terms of the actual vehicle, that's interesting. That's a single piece. That makes it a lot easier. And I think this is, I can't remember, I think this is a 2019 tooling. Might be 2016, I can't remember. But you've got the frame actually in the center here. That's quite a clever way of casting. Not unique to ICM, but that is quite neat to do it that way. So that, that's kind of how big it's going to be. It's pretty big. I mean, that's 1/35th scale big tank size, that is. That's like JS2 kind of length. That's, yeah, quite impressive. And you're not going to get any nasty joins, that part, and get it wrong or out of access or anything. Big chunky parts. This actually looks like a much easier build than the World War I 35th scale, which I guess is to be expected. It's a bigger kit. 1/24 scale as well kind of goes with a lot of other car kits, so directly comparable to 1/24 Lamborghini or something. The other piece I will say about ICM is the quality and clarity of their clear parts is really good. I mean, that's in a bag and you're getting almost no optical distortion. That's pretty impressive. Apart from those headlights, of course, because they are lensed, so they're meant to be. In fact, you are actually getting lensing there. Look, it's actually magnifying coming through there. Wow. Now, the one thing I don't like about ICM vehicles in general is that they supply rubber tires. However, I will say in 1/24 scale, I actually think that's an advantage. Because 1/24 scale, you are getting to that bit where rubber is a much better representation of rubber than a styrene piece. I think when you get to 35th scale and below, it's much easier to work with plastic, especially on vehicles, military, sort of quasi-military vehicles. I think for this, which you could do in like a parade formation, right? It wouldn't have to be in the field and dirty. You could do it pristine. Then I think 1/24 scale, as with other 1/24 scale cars, works to have the rubber. So that is the one caveat to my normal dislike of rubber tires. The rubber tracks, however, no. So you're still getting some very fine pieces like the windscreen wipers there. I can't imagine they're going to clean much off your windscreen, are they? Pathetic. I guess that's why you had massive, great lamps, right? Interior is quite nice. You got again all of this, all the full engine piece. Suspension, that's a big engine, look at that. And again, you've got really, pieces with great finesse as well. Wow, you've got a two-piece steering wheel. That's going to be interesting. That's going to stretch my skill getting that together without breaking something on it. So another really nice looking kit. And for me, I think it's a nice, interesting and unusual thing to have in that scale. To go along as a diorama piece to add that interest to, as I say, a 1/24 scale aircraft or something, and also have, direct comparison with a very common non-military car scale. Okay, one more. So I'm not going to do the Gladiator, and I'm not going to go through all of the figures, but let's have a look at this beast. I can't even get it all in the frame. Look, this is a biggie. Big 75mm cannon strapped underneath a Ju-88. I mean, what could possibly go wrong? Oh my God. Oh, that took some getting out. Oh. Again, That is above the level of this box. Very full. Very full box. I like that because, you know, Airfix, as I say, do it. ICM do it. You get a feeling of what you're getting, right? I think one of the worst things, it's that kind of child at Christmas moment, isn't it? Where you open a box and it's almost empty and just has a little thing inside it. Like, have any of you gone to the supermarket and got like a big, like 15-inch pizza, and then you open the box and inside it's like this, and you just think, why don't you just put it in a smaller box so I knew what to expect? The price of these, I could, but I couldn't tell you right off the top of my head now, because I don't have those. But they will be in line with most of what they've done before. So rather than doing that, let me do a very quick search. And let me see. Okay, so this kit is about £60 RRP in the UK, but I can see it's on for about 56 for this kit, which is obviously 48 scale, big kit. If you think, you know, let's see, what is the Airfix? Let's see, Airfix 148 Stuka. The Airfix Stuka is 36.49, and let's see, 148 scale. So the base version of this kit, so if you just bought the A version, the normal bomber is about £50, which you can pick up for about 46. So it's about £10 more expensive, obviously, because it's a new kit, and you're getting the new parts. It's a little bit more expensive. And just looking at who else does JU 88 in 48 scale at the moment. I'm not seeing a huge amount here. Kitech, you don't want to build that. Special Hobby, they do one for about 40, so they're a bit more than I would say a mainstream manufacturer, which I would kind of expect, right? Because they're a smaller operation. But of course, if Revell get hold of these and do them, they will be cheaper. That's one of the things that they do. We don't mention the J word here, David. One thing I do like, and many manufacturers don't do this, is they include swastikas. I know in Germany it's a banned symbol, but elsewhere in the world it is not. And I believe in historical accuracy. These things, it is a symbol, not more. It's the belief behind it that's evil, right? And they did fly with swastikas on, so I always have swastikas on my aircraft. It does not make me a Nazi. It just makes me want to build a historically accurate thing. No apologies needed, David. It's only a joke. The other thing I would say is these are a bit more expensive. ICM kits generally are a bit more expensive, maybe what, 10 to 20% more expensive than an equivalent Airfix kit, for instance. There's a couple of caveats I'd put to that. I would say, like with the Stuka, right? This is a better kit in terms of detail and stuff than that Stuka, even though the Stuka is a nice kit. And actually, newer Airfix kits, the pricing is sometimes a bit up and down, like that Swift, which is really way too much for what it is. A little 70-second kit for £27, I think it is. But yeah, again, the amount of detail, quality you're getting here, we're not talking, exceptionally expensive. We're not talking about the same sort of level that you get from a more niche manufacturer like Das Werk or, I don't know, like a Dora Wings big kit or Border Model or something. So obviously there are a lot of parts replaced in this, from the A model. Obviously you're getting extra parts. Looks like all of this frame H here looks completely new, which looks to be obviously complete new lower section. Quite a bit actually. I'll have a look at that in a second. Yeah, and you're not using, oh, actually, looks like you're getting new frames for the nacelles. Yeah, you've got a new frame here for the nacelles, and what are those? Are they the horizontal stabilizers or vertical? Not sure. So actually, there's quite a lot of new parts in here. So you've got two whole frames which are new here, as well as all of the other frames. So that explains where the extra cost is coming. So again, you're going to get a lot of spares in this kit. Right, crinkly moment. That's a lot of plastic. I mean, if you compare this to the Gannet, for instance, which is basically the same price, right? It's £55. You're getting, I would say, a similar size aircraft. Oh wow, you actually get complete engines. Oh, that's nice. That's very nice. Look at that, complete Jumo engines. Okay, I think the extra cost is justified. Right. I've never done this kit before, so not in its native form. As I said, never done a 48 scale JU88. So actually, let's have a look. It is about the same size as a Gannet. Gannet is about that long. Detail level here. This is very delicately engraved plastic, much like their most recent kits, the Sally. The great thing about this kind of panel lining, and way above, same sort of panel lining that you get with Airfix now, because it's very crisp and very thin, a wash will take to this and you can brush off the excess and it'll remain in there really well. If you think of the Zvezda kind of panel lines, very faint, quite broad, it's really easy to drag it out and lose that and get a really patchy look to it. where you can get a very clean panel line look out of this with minimal work. That's the other thing. So there's all the radio equipment. A little bit of internal detail. Sides there. Obviously, there's not an awful lot to see outside the front of the JU88. This is one of the new frames. So completely new bottom here. That replaces this one. This one obviously in the A has this little gondola at the front, which had an extra MG in it, which I think was optional. This one, and of course, you've got your main frame of the fuselage, whereas this one, you just have this massive space here for the gondola. Then you have the gondola itself, which is huge. Look at the size of that thing. Oh, and look at that. That looks like you're getting the ammo feed for the cannon. And then the cannon itself. That looks pretty nice, actually. Looks really nice. That's going to require some careful cutting off there, because those pieces are very thin there. But it's all kept to the right angle. Interesting. Oh, and that's the nose, the solid nose. This is the second of the new frames. And here you've got new broad paddle bladed propellers, not like the normal. Let's see if I can find the, yeah, here we go. These are the normal props of the JU88. Look how much thicker those are. Those are very different. I didn't realize they were so different. And completely different engine nacelles. Must be a different version of the Jumo, I imagine. Probably to keep the damn thing in the air with all that extra weight in it. So actually, if you've done an A version, this will look quite different, you know, in a number of aspects. That must be the rudder. So this must be a new tail. So those are your two completely new sprues. That's impressive. I didn't expect that they would give you the full cannon and feed mechanism and everything. That's quite impressive. As you've seen, we don't use most of this. So lots more for the spares box. But this, I did not realize you got those Jumos. I mean, that is pretty good. And they look really nice as well. Plus you're getting, again, you're not going to use 90% of this. Look at those machine guns too. I think it's worth the extra £10 just to get all of the spares for your spares box, to be honest. Some really nice renditions of the undercarriage with the pre-cut out light and struts. Yeah, I must admit I am liking the look of this a lot. That's what I would call a fiddly bits sprue. These look like controls for side panels. Lots of. Those are quite, wow. Those are pretty substantial landing gear. Those are not the sort of things that are going to just snap off. And yet you've got really nice, finely molded yoke there. You see that? Try and get a bit of shadow behind it so you can see. Really nice control yoke there. Side instrument panel. Very uncomfortable looking seats. Oh, second engine and various stores. Oh, those are flame dampers for the engines and various machine guns. Not sure whether you use those or not. And then the wings. I think the wings on ICM kits show you kind of the level of casting detail. Again, you can see it more actually over here. Where is it? This one, where the light is catching it, and you can just see those panel lines. So you get the panel lines, you get the lines for all of the refueling ports and things. I'm trying to get it so you can catch the light there and see that. Yeah, Chris, I would say this will be a great birthday present, to be honest, to yourself. I am, yeah, I'm really looking forward to this, actually. It's just a shame it was such a garbage anti-tank platform. You know, the actual firing rate of it was dreadful. And yeah, much better when they went to the 37mm, the tungsten cord cannons, the same ones that they have on the Stuka. I think the HS-129 was a much better, you know, purpose-designed platform for it. Was a much better idea, which, of course, we saw from ICM's catalogue is going to come in 2025, and that I'm really looking forward to. Because the thing is with the HS-129 as well, because it was successful, I guess, a lot, and because they had so many no-room engines to use up, was pretty ubiquitous. It was used in a lot of theatres. It was used a lot on the Russian front, so you get a lot of different schemes you got for that. You got the kind of base native camouflage, splinter camouflage, you got the winter overlays. They did some really cool field mods for that. It was used in more arid climates as well. So there's a lot more scope for, you know, doing interesting camos. Okay. So that is the great majority of what was in the box. I've got to try and put all this in the right boxes back now. We come back. Oh, look at my spooky Halloween face there. Let's try and get these to a more sensible angle. Not like that, Alex. There we go. There. It's still too bright. There we go. So, if any of you have difficulty getting ICM kits in the UK, I can get them through the shop. So please do let me know. I do have some on the website. I don't have a lot. I do have more in the shop. But again, other life things have been preventing me getting the stock onto the website. But if you contact me, I can always get stuff for you guys independently. The other thing, I don't know if Taggers is still on the stream, but and I've done a couple of these now, are mystery boxes. So these are something that I don't know how to get onto the website really, because essentially what I'll do is put together a bespoke mystery box. And by that I mean, if you give me a budget, so you say I want a £50 mystery box, and then a kind of list of subjects. So it's like you say, well, I'm into 1/72 World War II stuff, but I don't really like Spitfires. That gives me a guide, and I can put together what I would consider an interesting list of stuff. So you don't know what you're getting, but you know what you're getting is going to be in your wheelhouse, if you like, rather than a generic mystery box, which if I did that, if you see my Airfix videos on the 12 days of Christmas, you know my opinion on these is you don't really save a lot of money. You're basically clearing out all the stuff that Airfix can't sell or has it too much of or whatever. And you're going to please some people some of the time, but not everybody all of the time. So there's always going to be some kits in there that you think, well, I wouldn't have bought that. I'm not really interested in that. Which, yes, you can resell it, but on eBay, you've also got to think 30% of that is just going on fees. So you're only getting 2/3 of whatever you sell it for anyway. You've got all the hassle of dealing with that. If you've got an eBay account, if you haven't, list on Facebook Marketplace or whatever. So I think that's all a pain in the ass that you can do without, right? Unless you're regularly selling on those kind of platforms. And if you actually tot up what you saved minus what you actually didn't want, you could have probably just bought what you wanted, right? So I've done more tailored mystery boxes for people, but that's a very difficult thing to kind of put on a website, right? Because how do you do that? So if you do fancy the idea of that, send an email to through the shop, manmomo.am@gmail.com, and basically I get Taggers, you are there. Yes, so Taggers ordered one. That should be with you any day now, Taggers. And then we'll actually ask you on the next live stream if it was any good. But the idea is that you get something which you might not have otherwise expected. Because sometimes it's nice to get a surprise or be pushed into outside of your comfort zone. Rather than buying what you typically would. But you don't want to have something too far outside your comfort zone. So, if you don't want a ship, for instance, just put I don't like ships, and then I wouldn't put you a ship in there. Or I like majority of Cold War stuff, not World War II. It's tailoring it that way rather than getting you, the ubiquitous Mustang and Spitfire, and then you get a Cold War jet and a helicopter. I mean, when I got a helicopter in 12 Days of Christmas, it's just like, yeah, that Sea King kit looks really nice. I will never do it. The 72nd one, that is. So yeah, that's something that I've done a few times now. Still thinking about how I actually get it up onto the shop as kind of a more orderable thing. But yeah, thanks. Yeah. So the other thing is I don't have any kits in the shop that I wouldn't do myself. I'll put it that way. Unless they're secondhand, if they're secondhand, they come in and people know. Typically, if you're buying secondhand, you're either taking a punt or you're buying something that you want. So with secondhand stuff, yeah, I've got some old Airfix kits that I wouldn't sell if, for instance, I'm not going to stock the Hampton when it comes out. Unless people specifically order it in advance from me, say, I really want a Hampton. Can you get one in for me? Yes, I can. Will I order it generally and have somebody, some 12-year-old buy it in the shop? God, no. It's a terrible kit. And I really want Airfix to retool it because it would be really nice. And I'm actually really hoping that ICM tool it in 48 scale because I think that would be very cool. But yeah, that's the mystery box idea. If you've got any ideas of how I could actually put it onto a Shopify website in some semblance of making sense, I'd love to hear it. Again, please contact me on the shop email. That's interesting. Not a single Airfix or Revell kit on there. So I would say, so again, I did the, so obviously I covered the Airfix thing and my disappointment in it, which caused a whole ruckus with people. Back, what was it, the 9th that they released theirs? Since then, I've obviously done the Italieri and the Revell catalog releases, plus ICMs, of course, for the year. I mean, just talking about Revell, Revell, it's a very typical Revell release, right? They've got some new tools, not that many, but a very broad range, which I think is admirable. And then a lot of reissues, which are just old kits, right? Some of those old kits are actually really good. And I mentioned in the video, like the Revell's heyday, I think the highlight of where Revell got to was from sort of 1996 to about 2010, I think, maybe a little bit earlier. They were doing really amazing stuff. I mean, that's when they did the 1/72 scale U-boat. They did the Blom Voss BV22, the Urado AR E555, and the Urado 240 that they've announced as being released this year. I recommend any of those kits to anybody. They're good kits. They've got good detail. They were actually a good price when they were released. If they released them for a similar sort of inflation-adjusted price now, that would be great. Any of their 1/72 scale armor that they tooled from about that time onwards as well. The T90, I did a Panzerhaubitz 2000. That was excellent. You know, they've done some really good stuff. But as everything with Revell, you have to be really selective. And the Airfix thing, I really like what Airfix have been doing. I think as a consumer, Airfix are doing a lot of good stuff. My main problem with Airfix at the moment is on the business side, which I think doesn't affect most people. But yeah, it's not ideal, I would say. But Airfix are doing really good stuff. That Gannett, which I've just finished, one of the best kits I've ever made. I think it's the best kit Airfix have ever made. I'm not talking about like subject-wise, because I know Sully did a really good rendition of this, and some people were like, because he said, "Is this the best kit Airfix have ever made?" I would say yes. Some people were like, "No, it's not an aircraft that interests me." Not the question he asked, you know. You can have the best kit of something that you don't like. Just because you don't like it doesn't detract from how good of a kit it is. You know, the best kit in the world could be a Ferguson tractor or something. I would never do a tractor, you know, unless for the channel because of specific request or something. Does that mean that's not the best kit in the world? No, it just means I don't like it. Don't like the subject. That doesn't take away from how good the kit is. So, but I completely get why people don't buy Airfix, either because of the reputation or because they don't do subjects that interest them. Because Airfix have become a little bit, I would say, narrow in their focus of late. So I think they need to broaden their horizons. I think they need to do more international subjects, because they're a very UK-centric focus in their current offerings, which is UK resident is fine, but even I like other stuff, you know. So yeah, so no, I don't think you've been too snobby. Personal, you know, preference and all that. Yeah, contact form. Yeah, but that's kind of not orderable. That's the kind of quandary I'm in, because I could do like almost like a Survey Monkey kind of tick list kind of thing, but you can't attach a value to that, because you have to enter a value somewhere, and then how do you make that charge? That's the thing, is how do you make it chargeable on a kind of automatic way, rather than just saying, I'll come up with something and then we'll do it, the transaction separately, you know, through PayPal or whatever, which is fine. I mean, it's fine for me. You have the same protections as a consumer, but it's just, it would be, say, more elegant to do it automatically, whatever you want to call it. Scale, era, land, air or sea. Yeah, you've also, then got personal preferences, like no Spitfires or only Spitfires or, brands, I don't build Revell, so there's all these kind of things. So I do vouchers already. So I guess you could do it through a voucher and then associate a form with it. That might be a way to do it. Yeah, you might be onto something there. I'm liking this kind of oh god, what do you call it? My brain's gone. I obviously haven't eaten recently. Brainstorming. That's what it is. Mentioning the brain did it. I need an Italieri option. Oh dear, poor Italieri. The main feedback I got from the Italieri catalogue was I don't say Italieri correctly, and it's like, if that's your biggest complaint, I don't give a damn. I say Italieri because I got used to them from my dad, who was used to them from that AE section, and he was the kind of person that wouldn't really care about how you pronounce something in a foreign language anyway. So that's kind of what I learned as a younger modeler. And it's very difficult to get out of habits that you've learned as a child. So that's how I say it now. It might be wrong, but I'm not going to be able to change it without concerted effort. And I can't be bothered. Who is it really going to offend? If Italieri ring me up and say, you are offending us greatly, and we would like you to review kits if you stop saying our name wrong, then maybe I would make the effort. But otherwise, okay. I have rambled for the last 10 minutes as usual. Enough. But that was what was in the box from ICM. It was basically the January releases plus all of those figures. As I say, there'll be several videos on the figures and maybe on the figures from wherever it was in this big pile I've got next to me, from the 1/24 scale FW. No, not the FWD, was either on type. The G4. And then obviously FWD, I think it's interesting. JU88 is definitely going up there in the soon to build pieces. But obviously reviews on all of these will be out over the next weeks. Sally unboxing and video review is out on Saturday. I've got one more before I start this lot, which is the Gotha Geo 242 Stress 244. Can't remember. The big German World War II transport thing in 48 scale. That is a beast. That box is huge, and again also full. So that's an interesting one. It's got all of the seats inside for the troops. There's a lot of seats. But thank you all for joining me and spending this last couple of hours going through all of that and getting a sneak peek of all of that plastic. And yeah, as I say, you'll be able to see the detail properly when I actually use my proper camera, which is now buried under a pile of plastic. So I have to retrieve that in a week or so, or a couple of weeks. Let's say 4. But otherwise, thanks, guys. Have a great night. Have a great weekend when you get there. And maybe I'll see you on Sunday. Okay? Cheers, guys. I can't see where my end stream button is now because the light's in the way. Cheers.